A big screen fish, welcome to Lanette Ware-Bushfield and Erico, the minds behind the new short film, Now What? Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you for
you.
having us.
I'm so
Yes.
excited to discuss this fantastic film. So much happens in that 13-minute and 20-second runtime. Like, our girl Maxz is going through it. Okay, she's suffering. There's things happening. It's one bombshell after another. And it just felt like if I looked away for even a second, I'm going to miss an essential detail. So, my first question is for you, Lanette. As the writer of this story, what was the spark that inspired it?
Yes. It's the idea that we, on our journeys as individuals, whether we be male or female, we have friendships that are as close as our family, oftentimes in our journeys. And so I wanted to explore the possibility of what a betrayal would force an individual to manage when it came time to have to confront an old friend who she once deeply loved. And the emotions, although still linger, she's never really dealt with the result of being let down. And I think that's something we all have to go through, whether it's a personal relationship, a parental relationship, or a friendship. We all are let down by other people because we're flawed, we're human. And so what do you do with that emotion and how do you reconcile it? Was the impetus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, you served as director of photography. How did you kind of develop the visual language? Like, what was there any inspiration? Was there a reference that kind of helped you with your choices? Because, as I mentioned, the secrets are in the details. So, could you kind of expand on that a bit?
Sure. Well, I'll give you a bit of background, I guess. Kevin, the
Yeah.
director, and I are good friends. We've worked on a number of feature films together, and him and I chat quite often. And I was on a trip back to Toronto, um, and he says, "Oh, you're coming? When you coming?" And I gave him my dates. It's like, dude, I would love it if you would shoot the short film that I'm directing. And I'm like, Kevin, no questions, not a problem at all. So he sent me the script, and I liked it. I thought it was there was a lot to it, a lot of meat to it, and you could dig into the personalities a lot more. And he says, look, this is also a kind of proof of concept for something longer. So I said, great, great.
Mm.
This is sounds great. I'd love to do it with you. And that's how I met Lynette. So talking with Kevin and understanding the script and the duality and this constant it's like there's this I felt when reading it that there was um a struggle within herself
Mm.
to reconcile with this old friend of hers. And yet there was also bitterness and frustration and anger from how she was wronged in the past. And so to me, that was a very powerful theme, right? So that's kind of how I developed the visuals. And it being set in a bar, I thought like, okay, let's play around with something that is strong and gives emotion. So I wanted to play with color and not just be a very simply lit, straightforward kind of lighting style. So I said to Kevin, I said, hey, look, I have some references for you. You take a look. I feel that this red is good because that's the fire, in the story. And then we want to also kind of balance it out, in a way, or contrast it with the coolness.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
So that's how we came
Mm.
up with this kind of bluish and red kind of thing, where the characters always have this kind of cooler side to them, and then the red, where the flame, the fire of that, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay. Let's
that's
talk.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No,
Sorry.
no, 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 no. I just
Okay,
want to
let's
say, and
talk
that's
about
how we
that
came with
red
the
and
color.
white
Yeah,
light for a second, because
yeah.
I have some questions. So, Miss Lenny, to me as a viewer, seems very suspicious. In the beginning, when Lenny walks into the bar, she's covered in white light, but as her conversation with Maxz kind of progresses, where I
Mm.
start to become suspicious with some of her choices, but as it progresses, that red light kind of tampers on her a bit more.
Yes.
And playing off of the red light, Maxz, it's used, I feel like for me as a viewer, that red light is to reflect Max's internal struggle, as you mentioned. But
Mhm.
it's also a choice to use it again when she gets up and she starts considering that offer from
Yes,
Lenny. And she
yes.
goes to the painting, she looks at the painting, and that red light intensifies. And then there's a look back to Matt or to Lenny, and that red light is on her too. So can you
Mhm.
talk more about that choice? Was that intentional? Am I picking up on the right signals here?
Well, yes, definitely. Because when you're shooting in a bar, you're kind of locked into angles. It's a conversation, and we don't want it to be too static and too like just talking heads, blah 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 all the time, right? So that being said, I always say, okay, let's not have them sit side by side because then it's
Mm,
always talking like this or straight on. So you get a very profile shot or you get a front on shot. So I said, let's put them at the L. And then that
mhm.
also creates a separation. And then that also allows us to give us color contrast. So I said, okay, red's coming from the bar and the cooler light coming from the wall. And then we have white light coming in from the window in the back. And as you said, Lenny is at first silhouetted. You don't see her face. She's sitting in there in the
Mm.
corner. You don't even know she's there, right? And when she steps out of that booth, of that backlit, she's kind of
Almost like
silhouetted
she's
into
stepping
the
out
light.
of the subconscious of Max's mind because when you would see
Yeah,
her come in the door, she just kind of appears like hello, and Max is
yeah,
like, "You're following me? Like, wait, where did
exactly.
you come from?"
Exactly, right? And we want to create that mystery of her too, and then suddenly, like, as you say, suddenly, like, what? Where'd you pop up from, kind of thing. So, and then putting them in the corner allowed me and Kevin to kind of create that feel where it's like, okay, so depending on how she turned and who she spoke, Letty always had that duality of her because she
Mm,
was the way she was facing, right, with the bars, with the red light and the kind of bluish coming. So she always had a duality, right?
yeah.
So that was how we created the visuals. So yes, it was there was intention to it, but sometimes like in films, things happen, and there's a happenstance where it's just like, wow, that just worked out so perfectly when she goes to the picture and how we lit it is like, wow, that happened. It was not like, okay, we planned it specifically for that. We kind of knew what we wanted, but because and also this is something that you do in blocking. When you block out the scene, we're like,
Mhm.
hey, that's great, and you go with that, right? So yeah. So there's
So,
there's,
And
there's some
and Raven,
serendipity to that.
yeah, Raven, if I may, I feel compelled to say that everything Eric just outlined as far as the duality of these characters, their perspectives, and the contrast really worked for us as actors because it was uncomfortable,
mm,
right? There
mhm.
were there is this very unnatural way in which we're sitting and being and addressing each other and or whether we're even looking at each other. I mean, Kevin literally directed me as Maxz intentionally for the longest time not to even look at her. And I can't tell you how uncomfortable that was. So between the two of them, it really helped feed, Liz Saunders and myself in this very intimate, quiet stage to film attempt that I have made here in writing this piece, which is very difficult to translate to film because, as Eric said, that's very risky to expect
Mm,
people to just sit there and watch two talking heads. I just felt compelled to say that because all of those exterior elements, and as he said, in the L shape in which we were sat is and directed to sit is really helpful and useful to the actor because it's not natural, and that feeds into what we were trying to convey anyway, right? The discomfort of just being in one another's presence. Yeah.
And also to add to that, in terms of Kevin's direction and the craft, the acting of both our leads, is that um where at the beginning, Max is, in a film, it's very easy to fall into the trap of like anger means ranting and shouting,
mm,
right? And that's sometimes not as effective to convey the message or the idea or the emotion. And
yeah.
that clipped, controlled sometimes is more effective. That quiet anger is more effective now, all that kind of thing. And that's what Kevin directed Lanette to do at the beginning, as she had said, is it was difficult not to look and just be like, no, because she was like, you know what, I haven't seen you in so long. I've been inside, I've been in prison, and now like after all this time, you show up, like I don't even want to talk to you kind of thing, right? It's very, and then as the film progresses, as she finds out more about as Maxz finds out more about Lenny's situation, you notice that it's Maxz that approaches her in the positioning of the bar. It's not the other way around. And that was again intentional. So that it's like, okay, you know what? I'm coming to you now.
Yeah.
Because I feel that there's okay, I understand where you're from, what you've been through. I'm starting to forgive you now. So I'm starting to come towards you.
Yeah,
right? So
got
positioning
chills
is all
on that, Eric. Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah, I also want to comment on at the beginning, as you guys are talking about Maxz not looking at Lenny the whole time. She's just like defiant, like I will not look you in the eye. But I also love that because it's a testament to her trying to balance her rage with the fact that she loves this person. And it's not so much anger, it's like hurt. It's heartbreak.
Exactly.
If she looks her in the eye, she's gonna break down. So I don't even, to me, it felt like it was more of her just trying to protect herself from showing face. And
very much so.
Love that. And then as like Lenny kind of works on her and like breaks her down a bit, which I felt was like, you're up to something. Are you really who we think you are? That's when she starts to like come to her. But I want to pivot here to collaboration for a second. Let's talk about collaboration, Eric, and you with Kevin. What was the most rewarding or surprising aspect of bringing this project to life?
I think, well, it was a very short time because I kind of came on at the last second, just due to certain scheduling conflicts that the production had with other members that they had had on the project before. So we had a very short time. So it was a very quick thing, and that was just like that had to develop. So it was in terms of it was the whole process actually in terms of like at first like we were discussing the film and then finding a look. Once that moment of like say yes, let's go with this, let's lean into this look of duality of the red and the blue light, of the cool and the hot. That's when things kind of developed into its language, into the visual language, right? I said, Kevin, let's not place them because also it helps me as a cinematographer in terms of my lighting and camera angles, not side by side, but more importantly, because as a cinematographer, I'm here to serve the story. It's not the other way around. It's not, oh, let's make cool shots. Does it serve the story? No. Then let's not do that, right? So I said, I think this also serves the story in terms of, as I said, that their physical positioning, their distance from each other, and and all that. So all of these was in a matter of days, like the quick back and forth. And Kevin was also busy, and I was also had things that I had to deal with. But yeah, the collaborative thing was rewarding in that sense, and also it happened a lot on set because it's very film is very organic. So Kevin and I discussed this, and of course he's talking to Lanette. But then when you're on set and the actors are there and they're doing the lines and they're going through stuff, you also discover little things here and there, and that's to me sometimes the most rewarding because it's like that serendipitous kind of like, oh hey, look, that was really cool, let's go with that kind of thing, right? So in terms of camera angles or in terms of like how things work out in mechanics, like for example the anklet shot, right? We like the prop was not like we had to kind of like figure something out because it's not something that it's easy to find, that kind of prop. So that also I said, okay, let's we'll shoot it, make us shoot a certain way, which makes it actually very nice for the storytelling for the whole storytelling of it, right? So
So am I crazy, or when at the end when she walks over to the painting, that tin foil to cover the ankle monitor, which is to make sure that the cops don't realize that she's like left her radius, right? When that falls off, was that to signify, because Lenny picks up and she's like, oh, like, well, didn't pick it up, it's handed to her, but she looks at it and I'm like, oh, is that to signify that the cops are coming now because it fell off?
I definitely, as I mentioned to you in our private conversations, I love to drop Easter eggs. And
Yes.
so I'm not going to give that away. But
Okay.
I love that you asked the question. That's a
I'm
huge
sorry,
Easter egg.
Screen Fish viewers, no spoilers today.
No, not for the feature, but it's going to be answered in the feature.
I mean,
Okay.
and that's the great thing about film, right? Like you picked up on that, and it could be like, yeah, that could be, or maybe not. You never
Yeah.
know, right? Only Lanette really knows, the writer, the director, only they, a few of them really know, a few of us really know. But yeah, and that's the great thing about it.
Yeah, it's a teaser.
It's a teaser, exactly.
And I think I need to say to everybody watching that Eric's being very generous right now when he says that, he arrived and he filled in. You don't understand, guys. Eric was the hero of this project in that, yes, there were a lot of scheduling changes. He jumped in, and yes, he has a relationship with Kevin, which definitely allowed this to just solidify in a way that I could have never imagined, but he hit it out of the park. He hit a bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, home run. I just need to say, without Eric, this would not have happened. So thank you, my sir. Hats off to you.
Lanette. Thank you.
Very generous.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
It was a beautiful experience because of Eric's last minute save.
Well, speaking of team collaboration, staying on that topic for a second, DOP, director, EP, executive producer, together, how did you guys decide what to put in the film to have the most emotional impact? Because obviously the script went through changes, Lanette, and you guys would have to sit down, as you mentioned, Eric, there's blocking that needs to be done. You have to kind of visualize before you actually start filming, and then the actors come in. So what did you guys decide together? How did you guys decide together what to keep to have the most impact for audiences?
Well,
I'll take this one really quickly. Yeah, just
if
briefly.
I may start, Lanette.
Yeah.
For me, my job as a cinematographer is to give Lanette, the EP, the producer, she's the EP, the producer and the writer, and Kevin as much as they can for the edit.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin and I have an idea of how it should edit. We discuss with this, and of course, it's discussed with Lanette, being the writer, and we have kind of in mind the beats of what are the critical moments and the beats of the film that has to go. So my job as a cinematographer is to make sure that I give them enough material from various angles, and when it is that we should have a close-up, when is the moment that we should be in a wide, staying at arm's length away from our characters, when is it that we should be in with them, in an intimate moment, and to give them enough of that so that they can make those decisions. Because sometimes, no matter how wonderfully detailed you have your film storyboarded, whether it's a short film or there's a feature, and I've seen this countless times on all the projects I've worked on, when you go to the edit and you actually edit the film and you paste it out, it can be very, very different from what you thought at the time on set.
Mm-hmm.
So some things may end up on the cutting room floor, some things may not. And as my job as a cinematographer is to make sure that Lanette, the writer, and Kevin, the director, have enough material to say, oh, I need that shot. Oh, shit, too bad we didn't get that shot while we're shooting. So to be able to see that, okay, Kevin, you're going to need some cutaways, not always the same thing. So let's do these things as cutaways and things like that, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Lanette?
Brilliant. I have nothing to add.
No, it's you got this.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in post. That's what I was going to say. And Eric just explained it. It's all in post, and he's absolutely right. That's the way it should go, right? I mean, and that's why he's brilliant.
And I guess that would also lean into the fact of how you guys decided, like what the final shape and tone of the film would be then as well, right? So not just so much about what would have the most emotional impact, but like what the final film actually looks like. How did you guys go about that? Like, Lanette, did you see the cut before, it was released? Did you see the cut and say, let's go back and do something else? Like, how did you guys approach that?
Yeah, I mean, again, in post, I had two editors and I worked with them very closely for 6 months, basically. Post is the most difficult and challenging. And there were some things that, as Eric just mentioned, that you had to sort of accept weren't going to be part of your initial expectation. And then there were other things that were surprises. So that's the beauty of post, is that it forms and shapes itself on its own, in essence. And it has to make sense. And so your editors are really, I mean, I was just listening. It's so funny. Frances McDormand literally had an interview where she spoke about this. She said that the film is not the director or the writer or the actor's medium, it's the editor's medium. And I remember going, wow, what do I think about that? And at the end of the day, I see what she's saying, right? Because they do help shape everybody's idea about what it should look like and feel like and become in the end. So I have to say that that's what this process was. It was a real sort of surrendering to what was available, what was intended, and what would eventually be. And I'm very happy with where it is.
Yeah.
It's never, as Eric said, it's always a surprise. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
The thing about film that, one has to, I guess, come to terms with in a way is that it's a collaborative thing. There's many people involved to make a final film. So you cannot be, that precious person that hangs on too tightly to an idea, whether you're the writer, the director, the cinematographer, or the editor, because maybe the idea doesn't work, but you're hanging on to something that doesn't really work for the film, right? I've seen that with writers, I've seen that with directors, I've seen that with cinematographers, and that's something that I always say, you know what? No, I cannot be like, waving that flag and saying, no, that shot has to be in. No, because if it doesn't serve the film, it doesn't serve the film. So, and for me, my involvement in post-production is basically color grading at the end.
Right.
Once the edit's done and everything, because that's purely something with Lanette, the editor, and Kevin, the director, right? And I come in, once that's done, once they have a locked edit, and I then work with the colorists to create to fine-tune the look, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Lanette, I want to return to you for a second as executive producer. And I know in our private conversations we talked about this, and I just think I just want to include this because I think audiences need to hear this. Why did you want to take on both roles as EP and writer?
Oh, well, I just think in as brief a manner that I can express it, when you have a concept in your mind, your own IP, it's very difficult to not just be able to translate it, but your passions and your connections to that story are so in sync and so symbiotic that it's almost easier just to, helm the project. I also was very keen on ensuring that I empowered the next generation. So for me to be in a position where I could bring in young junior creatives to shadow these talents, which allow them to skip over years of having to develop themselves by actually just being under an Eric, being under a Kevin. I had 6 junior creatives who happen to be BIPOC, and that's very important to me, and that they could just be on set and learn. I mean, Kevin was so patient with my young script supervisor who had never done this before to explain to her, why she was to look at certain lines and which could be overlooked. And I mean, that was just beautiful for me to look out into, set and see this wonderful collaboration, and Eric being so patient with, my clapper, and, it's not going to be perfect, but they lent themselves their time and their efforts to empower the next generation. And as an EP, that's my duty to who I am as a soul on this planet. It is always about giving back. I would not be here without the people that have helped me along the way. Mentorship is everything. And so I had to EP this project because I felt it would be the one where, because I was funding it, with some grants that I could actually control, where there wasn't a studio saying, no, we don't really know about that person, they don't have the experience. I really wanted to have a bunch of folks on board who could learn. And and again, I'm proud that I have 6 young people who were in key positions that I don't think they would have gotten just at this stage. They're going to get there eventually, but not right off the bat. So.
And I love that that's something that's so important to you, because as we know, as a film journalist, and though you guys being actually in industry, it's a tough business. It is a tough business, especially if you're BIPOC, to get people to take you seriously, to listen to you. But then also, we know unions are great, but sometimes to even get into a union, you have to have all of these credentials. And then with such a small space, it's not, opportunity is just not readily available. There's just not enough room for everybody when you have these barriers, which can serve positively, but also kind of hold new people back. So I love to hear that. I love that you've made that a point, not just on this film, but I know in other items that or other projects you've produced as well. That is it's fantastic to hear. Oh, Oh, please,
It's
Eric.
no,
Yes.
no. I was going to say no. Mentorship is extremely important, and it's and Lynette has to be commended for that, for bringing on these young creatives, to give them an opportunity to be on set, to see how a real working set works, and not just to see, but to participate and to learn. Like as you said, the clapper, he had never done it before, so it was a little bit rough at beginning, but he got the hang of it. He's a quick learner, and by the end of it, he was great. He was great, right? And I'm a full member of the Canadian Society of Cinematographers, the CSC, and they run a mentorship program too. And I do the same thing. I was a mentor on that program, mentoring young up and coming cinematographers. And I 100% agree with Lynette. It's super important to give back to the young up and coming guys and give them a shot, give them, and give them an opportunity to be on set. No, it's great that Lynette takes that to heart and that she did that on this film. It's very commendable.
There is this great book that I read about, filmmaking being a community experience. And we've talked about this before as well, Lynette, that you can't do it all yourself. Art is collaboration, art is community. So I just love to hear that, especially with, prominent figures in this film, keeping this in their mind. It's very inspiring for me as a film journalist to hear, and I hope it's inspiring for our audiences to hear that as well, to keep an eye out for the people who are actually trying to make change with their positions that they have. But I do have one final question for you guys. Now, I know, Lynette, you don't want to give away, you don't want to spoil too much, but so much of what happens in this film alludes to a part two. So you also mentioned that there could be a feature, maybe a feature or a series. If that is the case, what would you like, or what can audiences expect for you to explore for arcs for these characters?
Yes, well, when you see the short film, thanks to Eric and Kevin, it will be intimate, it will be quiet, it will have its explosive moments, but it is very much a stage to screen attempt at what will be the opposite. I envision this next project, which is the unfolding of what you will see in the short, to be fast, furious, energetic, and big. So keep that in mind. It's intended to be a little prelude to the big explosive concepts that I have coming. Yeah.
So a feature is coming.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, that's what I want to hear. Bigger, better, fast and furious. Action is like my favorite genre. Okay, John Wick, the ballerina, Fast, Furious, Bourne, I love all of it. I'll watch that stuff for hours and days. So I cannot wait.
I'm a Michael Douglas falling down fiend. I was obsessed with that movie from the beginning, and these are vanguard women, right, who want to right the wrongs of the world. So that's where they're headed. So just so everybody knows.
I can't wait. That sounds like so much fun. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with Screenfish today. It means so much to us. It means so much to me to be able to speak with you. And thank you for your generosity and giving some secrets of what to expect. We can't wait. I hope you guys have a lovely day. And until it comes, I'll be spying on you because that's what I do.
Thank you all for listening and tuning in. Thank you, Raven. What a great job. And thanks to Eric and Kevin. You all will hear from us soon.
Thank you. We can't wait. Bye.
Thank you, Raven. Thank you, Lynette.
Thank you.